Hey guys, let's dive deeper into Uranus and Gemini, which is the major transit of the day today, 7-7. Uranus moves into Gemini where it hasn't been for 84 years. And not only is it the major astrology of the day, but the years to come. This is really going to mark the decade to come. Uranus is a generational planet. It paints the picture, it along with the other generational planets, paint the picture of decade, right? Uranus being in a sign for 7 years. Now, if you are a subscriber to my Substack, if you're not, what are you waiting for? It's linked down below. You can join for free, or you can pick one of the paid options and help support me in my work, and also have access to some of the ones that are locked for only paid members. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already. Link down below. But if you are a subscriber to my Substack, you've probably already read my article on Uranus in Gemini. If you're not, that's cool. We're going to dive into it here now, and then we're going to expand on it. So if you've already read that article, you kind of have a frame of reference for like the bones of this video, but we're going to read it together with, me stopping every 5 seconds to add my 2 cents on my 2 cents, my 4 cents. To add a little bit more, to expand on what I'm saying. We're going to dive into some things that weren't in that article, like some of the first aspects that Uranus makes once it moves into Gemini. A lot of them are really positive, which can be really great for our personal lives, but being as though this is a generational planet that really affects the world stage at large, politics, war, pushes into the future through technology and things like that. The energy is really primed right now for the powers that want to be really kind of jumping forward very quickly into, a lot of their agenda pushes that they're planning for this transit. Uranus will be in Gemini till 2033. We know they love that number, right? I think they have a lot planned for this. And a lot of it, of course, is going to revolve around AI and data collection and the technocracy infrastructure that's being built all around us right now, right? So we're probably going to see a lot of stuff happen very quickly on the world stage. But then also we have this opportunity to quantum leap. Uranus is all about pushing us and breaking us free from stagnation and pushing us forward into the future, right? So we're going to dive into some of the first transits that Uranus makes once moving into Gemini. We're going to talk about how eventually, once it moves into Gemini, it's within orb to a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. This is a really big energy, right? That's going to be building up until 2028 when it finally becomes exact. 2028, 2029, 2030 because of retrograde. So we're going to talk about that. I also pulled some cards for this energy that are intense, to say the least, and kind of all over the place. Which is Uranus? Uranus is intense. It's unpredictable. It's erratic. And it's kind of all over the place, right? And so we're going to get into this article. We're going to expand on it. And we'll talk about some stuff that, wasn't covered in that article at all, right? So if you've already read it, you still want to stick around because we're going to cover some things. You guys know I can never talk without just explaining more, talking more, and saying more things. So we're gonna do all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm gonna bring up my Substack. If you are not already subscribed, make sure you head down below and subscribe. Like I said, you can do it for free. This was a free article unlocked for everybody. Honestly, the majority of them are. Every once in a while, I'll do something that's paid for those of you that are, helping support me. I make very little money And any sort of like monetization, the bulk of my money comes from Patreon. So my Substack is just now starting to grow. I just reached 1,000 followers or subscribers. Thank you guys so much. And my sessions. That's where it comes. I'm not making anything on YouTube. I'm not making anything on Instagram or anywhere that I share a lot of free content all the time. I always try to make it as accessible to you guys as possible. My Substack's like $5 a month, super affordable if you are in that position. Although I know many of us right now are broke. And we'll talk about that. It's actually here in the article. All right, so the title is, let's see if I can pronounce this right, Tumultuous Uranus and the Good Old US of A, right? We're going to talk about Uranus and Gemini throughout history, at least most of America's history. We could go back farther and we see similar themes. I didn't in this article. We're not really going to go back farther than like the 1600s. But we could already see the picture painted in the dates that I have outlined here, right? We're going to talk about how this really impacts America. A lot of people are commenting on my posts on Instagram and being like, it's going to affect the world. Yes, it's going to affect the world. But I'm willing to bet whatever happens, like the big events of the next 7 years are going to be initiated by America, or America is going to be entangled in them. And that is because, yes, Uranus is moving into Gemini. This is going to shape our world to come. But America has their natal Uranus in Gemini. So America is going through its Uranus return. Uranus was in Gemini on July 4th, 1776, when America was born. Every time Uranus has moved into Gemini since then, America has been at the forefront of the world events. Not only is America heading into its Uranus return, but our president, which is a term I use very loosely, is a Gemini. He has a Gemini stellium in the 10th house of career, reputation, how you're seen out in the world, on the world stage. And Uranus is a very erratic planet. And when it transits your personal planets, the crazy in you comes out more so than ever. And so he's going to be more unhinged than ever before. America is going to be at the forefront of these events. Mark my words. I hate saying that because I hate being right with when it comes to these kind of things. But I mean, I read the pattern, right? I see patterns everywhere. And it doesn't take that brilliant of an astrologer to see this pattern. It is clear as day. And your feed's probably full of astrologers talking about this, right? This is a transit that's all about information, war, particularly war that America is involved in, change, rebellion, awakening, and really unpredictability. Like, us astrologers, we're looking at the pattern, we're trying to be like, hey, this has happened in the past, this is where we're headed, these are my predictions, right? But Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. Like, we can't even fathom where we are headed. And even, I know that the powers that want to be, as I call them, always have a plan for major astrological influence in order to push their agenda forward. And I know they have one for this, particularly around technology. But even though they think they have a plan, there is this essence of unpredictability about the vibes, right? There's this aspect of rebellion, of awakening, of change, and change that might be outside of their control, right? So a lot of things are going to be happening around us. A lot of information is going to be flowing to us, but we are part of this change. And we're going to talk about that, particularly when we get more towards the end of the article, all right? So let's do it. Let's talk about war, both literal, major world war, and the war for your mind, right? Gemini governs the mind. And Uranus and Gemini together is like an onslaught of information coming your way, really trying to steer you and guide you in certain directions, right? The propaganda is going to be propaganda-ing. And we're going to be fighting many wars, both literal and a like spiritual war for your mind, right? Let's talk about AI and so-called innovation, the so-called big, beautiful bill and the Gemini president who birthed it, and with it, the surveillance state, right? So surveillance, data collection, and information consumption are going to be major themes of this transit, right? Your commodity, your mind, your attention, and your data is the hot ticket, right? The beast system, as the Christians like to call it, is really being born all around us right now, and it's fucking hungry. It's hungry for your mind, it's hungry for your attention, it's hungry for that data. And we can either feed it mindlessly or we can be intentional with this transit. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the article. It's this beast system, right? It's Big Brother, like in 1984. It is a major push in New World Order agenda, right? Much like 2020. When we saw this push in 2020, they pushed forward and it backfired to a certain extent. I mean, most people fell hook, line, and sinker for it, but some people who were previously asleep to the illusion, to like the hidden hand behind our society, behind our world, started to wake up, started to question, started to realize that they can't blindly follow things anymore, right? And so this rise of the control system is going to lead to a rebellion, multiple different versions of rebellion. There's of course going to be the orchestrated rebellion where our rebellious energy is fed in a specific direction that helps fuel their agenda, right? Certain protests, things like that, in order to fuel their data collection, their tracking, their tracing, their systems of control, right? And then there's going to be a natural, so an orchestrated rebellion and then like a natural rebellion where people wake up. Really, Uranus in Gemini is all about awakening your mind, the forefront of your mind, so that you can see. And this awakening happens in like shocking events and unpredictable things, right? It's unrest, it's unruly, it's tension, it's conflict, right? So there's going to be an orchestrated rebellion, and ideally there will also be this like natural rebellion and this wave of awakenings and realizations that will ultimately follow their push for control. That's how it always happens. It happens in waves, right? They push forward, more people are like, wait, what the fuck? And then our side, the wait, what the fuck side, starts to grow. More people are awakened, more people are realizing that things are not as they seem, and they start questioning, right? Here's a beautiful picture of Uranus. All right, so before we really get into it, I do want to just let everybody know that I'm running a sale right now. Everything in my shop, all my readings, all my sessions, and my course is all 30% off. So you use this code at checkout and you save 30% off everything. I'm doing this because the last couple of months for me, you guys, have been something straight out of a fucking nightmare. Like, it was one thing after another. I'm fucking traumatized, right? And I fell into a pretty deep depression where, like, all of June, I did not leave my bed. Like, I made dinner like a handful of times. Most of the time I had Eddie do it. I even had my kid making dinner at one point because I was in a bad place. I had kidney infection that landed me in the hospital. It was like literally the worst pain I've ever experienced in my entire life. It felt like I was being stabbed for multiple nights, and the pain was so bad that I was like vomiting all night. Like, it was so bad. I thought it was kidney stones. I still kind of think that it was. They don't know for sure. So bad. Ended up in the emergency room multiple times. During that time, I found out that I was pregnant. We have been trying for a really long time and already had a loss last year in June. And then right around 8 weeks, I found out that the baby had stopped growing and a miscarriage was inevitable, and it was so painful, like so much more painful than the last one. Oh my God, I don't know how I made it through that. That was pretty bad. And then I just like spiraled. I mean, of course it was like the drop in hormones and stuff like that, but I was in a bad place. And I'm feeling more myself, and I'm feeling like I want to return to, you know, my passion, my purpose, my clients, my work, get out of my head, get out of my bed, right? And so I'm like, how can I do this? I'm going to do a sale, and I'm going to try to just jam pack my books with as many people as possible, because when I come here, when I show up, when I'm sitting here talking to you guys, when I'm doing client work, like the light comes back to my life. And so I'm doing this mostly for myself, but also for you. I know everybody's broke right now, right? So if you've been wanting to do a session with me, now's the time. It's 30% off. My course as well is picking back up. It has been on a long hiatus as I've just been navigating years of turmoil. But we're coming back. I'm coming back to the teaching and the client work, all of that, right? And everybody who orders gets some free things as well. So a free 1-year transit report. It's like 20 pages, I think, sometimes longer. Breaks down all of your key transits over the next year. It's a PDF that you can reference whenever you want. It's generated through my software. And then also a birth chart basics report from Esoteric Technologies. Another PDF. It's like 30 pages long. And it breaks down all of, like, through a basic lens, right? All of the parts of your chart. Again, PDF you can reference whenever you want, and it'll be free to everybody who orders. I don't know how long I'm going to do this sale for, maybe until I feel like, okay, my books are full. I don't know when. A day, 2, 3, something along those lines. But you guys, my website is down below. Code is SAVE30. Everything is for sale, so go ahead and check it out. Here are some of my offerings. I have some new things like synastry astrology, natal asteroids. You guys can even do a transit session, kind of new. Children's reports, if you've had your chart read before but you want to have your kids done, this would be the one. I even started doing animal reports. If you're interested, you guys know where to find it. All right, you get the idea. Enough of that. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm sure everybody has heard by now, if you follow any astrologers or astrology at all, I'm sure you've heard that Uranus is moving into Gemini today on the 7th. 7-7. Oh, look, 222 right now. Uranus is the planet of new. All right, Saturn is the planet of like tradition, the old ways, how things have been. And for the longest time, humanity only knew of the planets up till Saturn, because Saturn is the farthest planet we can see with our human eye. All right. And so when you see a lot of older mythologies that are allegories for the celestial realm, they'll talk about like the 7. 7 is a big number. Interesting that it's 7 today. But 7 is a big number, and these are the 7 planets, including the sun and the moon, right, that we could see. The stars that moved, right, the gods themselves. And Saturn was the farthest one. And he governs the known world, what we can see, what we can touch, what we think we know, right? And then in the 1700s, the telescope was invented. Uranus is all about innovation and invention. The telescope was invented, and they looked out into the cosmos, and they saw Uranus, and they were like, holy shit, there's more out there. And so Uranus is all about shock and innovation and the new that pulls us out of the old and into the future. All right. Uranus is the planet of chaotic change, of shock, of unpredictability, of innovation, of awakening, high technology, rebellion, breakthroughs, freedom, and revolution. These are going to be the themes that are at the forefront of our mind over the next 7 years, because Gemini, where it is entering, governs the mind. It governs information. It governs data, communication, how we process that information, right? It also governs early childhood education. In medical astrology, it governs our nervous system. And then it governs duality. But not duality as in yin and yang, masculine, feminine, a light and dark. It does not govern duality in that way, although some people will claim that it does. It governs the duality of the mind. It governs the duality of ideas, of perspectives. Gemini is a masculine sign. It is an air sign. It is very polarized into the masculine expression. And it is a duality of communication, of information, of ideas, of perspectives, right? So it's not how we traditionally look at duality, which is yin and yang, light and dark, masculine, feminine. It is duality, but it's duality of information, of ideas, of perspectives, all right? Now, Uranus is entering Gemini for the first time in 84 years. It has not been here since the start of World War II, and this is kind of a big deal. It really is. It's a big deal, all right? As Ron Burgundy says, I'm kind of a big deal, all right? So this transit is going to affect us all in our own individual ways, right? Depending on where it falls in our natal charts. We'll talk on this more later, but now would be a great time to pull your natal chart and look and see, where does Gemini fall for you? What do you have there? I have Gemini in the 10th house. Mission, purpose, career, how I'm seen in the world, right? Maybe that's why I'm being called to come back out here some more, come out of my depression cave and like return to the world at large, because I feel like these are really big times and I'm meant to kind of show up in the world during these times, right? Many of us millennials have Chiron. Many of us millennials have Chiron in Gemini. I do, at the ending degrees of Gemini. We have some wounds in this area. We've had to do a lot of healing in this area, and we've unlocked a lot of wisdom in this area that we are going to be called to share during this time, right? Many of us millennials are also going through our Uranus opposition. If you have Uranus in Sagittarius, as I do, conjunct my moon, opposite my Chiron, along with my Saturn and a bunch of other things. If you have Uranus in Sagittarius, you are heading into your Uranus opposition. This is like a midlife transit that everybody goes through if they make it to their midlife, right? Where you really break free from societal norms and you embrace the like weird, authentic parts of yourself, right? You can get a little crazy, you can get a little chaotic, you can change a lot during this time, but you're really saying like, fuck you to society, to your parents, to control systems, to anybody that kept you small, and you're embracing your authentic, weird, unique frequency that you are meant to show up as in this world, right? And so if you are a millennial, if you are going to be heading into your Uranus opposition, or if you have major planets in Gemini or Sagittarius, now would be a really great time to book a session or to dive into your chart yourself if you are well versed in astrology, to kind of figure out how this is impacting you and how you can show up during this time, because I'm willing to bet you play a big part in the years to come. Also, if you have major planets in Pisces or Virgo, those will be sitting square Uranus at some point during this transit and will be very strongly aspected as well as the houses that they govern. This is literally the axis of my chart. It is all of my angular houses, my first house of the self, my 7th house of relationships, my 10th house of career, my 4th house of home. It's like all major aspects of my life, right? But we'll talk more about how it's impacting us personally later. First, I want to get into how it's going to affect the world, right? So Uranus is a generational planet. It will manifest its energy most strongly on the world stage, shaping the generation to come. The whole world, yes, okay, yes, the whole fucking world, but particularly America, as Uranus was in Gemini when America was born on July 4th, 1776, meaning that America is heading into its Uranus return, which technically won't be exact until July 6th, 2027. The first week of July is a really major week in the years to come. I break it down below. Break it down below. All right, so this transit of Uranus in Gemini and America's Uranus return, or anything's Uranus return, happens once every 84 years. If you're a human, you will have your Uranus return around 84, if you make it that far, right? This is a transit experienced every 84 years that historically coincides with major wars, like major wars, particularly with U.S. involvement and events that happen on U.S. soil. So not just like, oh, we go to the Middle East, right? Oh, we do something in the Gulf. It's like, no. This is events on U.S. soil. We'll break it down more down below, all right? This happens each and every time that Uranus has moved into Gemini, all the way back since the inception of America, without fail, all right? So let's first get into the history, all right? The dates of the last few transits of Uranus and Gemini and the major events tied to them, particularly here in America. This is from a post I did on Instagram about how the atomic bomb was created. Innovation. Moving into the future, the nuclear age. The atomic bomb was both created and dropped the last time Uranus was in Gemini. The chart is actually kind of crazy. The chart for the exact moment that that the bomb was dropped had Uranus conjunct Mars, which is the planet of war and action and aggression. And it was conjunct the midheaven, the top of the chart, like being seen out in the world. Mark my words, an astrologer picked that time. Like, it was just too perfect. Mars conjuncts Uranus every 2 years, but it has not done so in Gemini since the dropping of the atomic bomb. It will do so in 2026. July 4th. America's birthday, 2026. Gonna be a big day to watch, right? All right, so let's talk about some of these dates. The last time Uranus was in Gemini was from 1941 to 1949, all right? And we had World War II. World War II started in 1939 and it ended in 1945, but the U.S. didn't join until 1941. It aligns almost perfectly with the exact moment. Uranus moving into Gemini aligns almost perfectly with the exact moment that the U.S. joined the war after Pearl Harbor, which also happened then, right? So we had this event on U.S. soil, probably orchestrated, right? Where Japan bombed the shit out of Pearl Harbor, right? And all of our ships just had to be there. A ton of our infantry just happened to be there. And it was a fucking slaughter. Like, it was a major historical event, much like 9/11, that made our population be like, okay, yeah, let's join the war. Let's do it, you know? This marked the last transit of Uranus and Gemini. We'll see these themes come up again, right? We also had, like I said before, the splitting of the atom, the dropping of the atomic bomb, and the birth of the nuclear age. These themes will be coming up again. We also had the start of the Cold War, right? Us and Russia pointing shit at each other, threatening to destroy each other and the world. We'll probably have these themes coming up again. A lot of fear around possible nuclear holocaust, right? And probably some slaughter. When I pulled the cards, we'll get to this at the end while we read it, but when I pulled the cards for the like archetypal dynamic of this transit, the first card that I pulled was Thanatos, which is an initiation of death and destruction. Uranus will trine Pluto, the planet of death and destruction, during this transit. 2028, 2029, 2030, it will be exact, but we will be feeling it all the way from now. So do with that information what you will, right? All right, so we had World War II, particularly the U.S. joining World War II. We had the splitting of the atom, the dropping of the bomb, the killing of a whole bunch of fucking people, and the birth of the nuclear age. We had the Cold War. And then we also had the invention of the computer, the rise of television, which was invented in the 20s, but people didn't really have them in their houses until like the 1940s, right? Previous to that, it was radio. And then we also, with the rise of television, the rise of mass media and propaganda. Now we have the computer and the television in our fucking pocket. We take it everywhere with us. We're glued to this motherfucking thing. And this is going to be a key theme of this transit. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so previous to the 40s, Uranus was in Gemini in the 1800s, particularly from 1859 to 1871. And during this time, we had the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865. All right. This was a period of internal conflict, much like we see now, right? And division, this duality of ideas, of perspectives, of beliefs, right? Here, particularly within the United States, where we literally split in half and warred with each other. We're seeing a very similar split occur again right now in our country, in the minds of its population, in politics, in how the world is viewed. And people are getting really heated and serious about it, right? We also had during this time other major innovations, particularly in technology and communication, which Gemini governs, right? Gemini governs communication of ideas. Uranus governs innovation and technology, all right? And so we had major innovations in communication, information, and transportation, all of which Gemini governs. Gemini also governs transportation. We had the invention of the telegraph, railroads, mass journalism, newspapers, photography. All of these things saw a rise in our culture, right? And then our current transit is going to expand on this, right? Through AI and things like that. All right, so previous to the 1800s, we had Uranus and Gemini from 1774 to 1782. And during this time, we saw the American Revolutionary War. It was pretty much almost exact to the dates of Uranus's transit, right? This was the time of the founding of our country. If you live here in America, our country. If you don't, more power to you. So this was the founding of the United States and its fight for independence against Britain, right? So duality of ideas. Pay your taxes. I don't want to pay my taxes. I'm going to make a new country, right? Really, it was all about building the New World Order, and there were secret societies behind it and its birth, right? But on the world stage, taxes good, taxes bad. I'm going to fight you about it, right? Also, America, people came here, well, it was more before that, but people came to America for like religious freedom and things like that. Okay, so the founding of the United States and its fight for independence. This aligns with themes of both rebellion and the formation of new ideologies, new government, what this transit is all about. Like now they're building the New World Order, right? So this also manifested as a split in beliefs and ideas in the minds of man, right? All right. So previous to that, from 1690 to 1698, during this transit, this was pre-independence. So this is the early days of our country when we were still under the control of the crown, right? Yet this land, the good old US of A, was a focal point in the chaos of the times. During this time, we had the Salem witch trials, which for the most part took place during 1691. This was a period of intense conflicting beliefs, which Uranus and Gemini represents. It's known to accelerate conflict. Uranus represents conflict, and it's conflict between opposing viewpoints. Gemini represents opposing viewpoints, right? And so during this time, we saw the conflict between the new religion, Christianity, still fairly new, and the old religion, right? The old ways, the nature religion, using herbs, midwifery, things like that. And this conflict bubbled up to a head that resulted in death and destruction, right? So this tension manifested again in the minds of man. And because of its generational influence, this tension paints the scene for the generation, leaving its mark on history, right? You do not need to be a history buff to know about everything I just talked about, right? Even if you slept through school, you never cracked a history book, you never watched the History Channel, you never read a book on history, you are illiterate, right? You still know about all of these events. You still know about World War II. You still know about the Civil War. You still know about the Revolutionary War. Maybe you don't know the dates, but you know that these things happened. Everybody knows about the Salem witch trials. These are events that are major chapters in history books, not just, like the War of 1812 or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that wasn't an important period in history, but these mark the trajectory that how humanity moves into the future, right? Americans. All right, so Uranus, the planet of shock, change, technology, advancements, and rebellion, spends 7 years in a sign shaking things up. He's been in Taurus since 2018, up until today when he moved into Gemini. Since 2018, he was adding an essence of unpredictability to all of the realms that Taurus governs. So this is the realm of resources, finances, the economy, production, food, our physical body and its autonomy, and our ability to feel safe, secure, and taken care of. These are themes of Taurus, right? During this time, we saw the rise of crypto. Crypto is, finances, the economy, Taurus, and then it's also technological, Uranus, right? It's the two things mixed together. Taurus and Uranus together birthed crypto. It also birthed Neuralink, putting fucking chips in our brain, right? The brain-machine interface, the body mixing with the machine, right? We saw the body mixing with the machine in many ways. Bioengineering, mass gene editing via the you-know-what. I'm not going to say it, but you can maybe just read that. A recession akin to the Great Depression. Like, if inflation is, no one could have predicted this. Like, it is astronomical. People can barely afford a roof over their head and food, right? These are changes that threatened our safety. Being able to feel safe, secure, like you have a foundation, like you're taken care of. That is Uranus, right? Yet, during all of this, a rebellion was born. A rebellion when it comes to the food we consume, to the things we allow in our bodies. We really started to try and protect ourselves, our physical bodies more so. We could also add in here like 5G, the rises in synthetic frequencies and things like that to this list, right? And the awakening, the realization that technology may not be good for us. The things that we're putting in our body, these advancements, these synthetic things in our food supply, may not be good for our body, right? We even see people talking about the harmful effects of this now, right? When you couldn't mention this previous, right? It took a whole bunch of the population being negatively impacted in order for people to look at how this has probably been negatively infecting children for a very long time, right? It's about I'd say the 1950s, the 1980s. Big starting in the 1980s. Okay. So Uranus and Taurus left many of us broke. Our foundation has been absolutely rattled, and yet we found a sense of independence through it all, right? We really started to embrace the rebel archetype even more so. We found this independence through the propaganda, through the chaos, through the tension, through this so-called innovation, through all the change. We fought for our bodies, but now we prepare to fight for our minds. And then Spike, I love him. I love you. So toxic, but I love you so much. Great quote. This is so perfect for Uranus and Gemini. With all the rubbish people keep sticking in my head, it's a wonder that there's any room for my brain. It's even funnier when you know that the government put a chip in his head to like kind of tame him, right? But this really speaks to all of the data, all of the information, all of the propaganda, all of the stuff that is going to be flowing into our mind with Uranus and Gemini, right? That we can't even access our own brain because all of this technology is telling us what to think, and it's thinking for us, and it's creating for us, and it's doing everything for us. That like, is there any room left for my brain, for my thoughts, for my essence, right? And so this transit is really going to be asking us to take back our autonomy and find a sense of freedom during a time when our mind, where our humanity is being fucking hijacked, right? All right. Love you. Okay. So Uranus will soon enter Gemini. It did today. It's going to be here from 2025 to 2023, but it will dip back into Taurus later this year due to retrograde. So from April 20... Why did I write later this year? Oh, okay. No, I'm right. Later this year, yeah. So from November 7th to April 26th, it will be back in Taurus. Dipping back in there, probably see some more chaos in the realm of finances, resources, things like that. And then it's going to move back into Gemini, where it will stay till 2033. All right? So like we've said before, Gemini governs the mind. But it's not like the higher mind. It's not like the philosophical mind. It's not like the mind that asks big questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What is God? It's the lower mind. It's the forefront of the mind. It's logic. It's consumption of data, consumption of information, sometimes without any intention, thought, or purpose, just for the sake of learning or consuming information, right? I have a whole bunch of Sagittarius placements in my chart. I consume a lot of information, but I do so with it geared towards philosophy and higher concepts of like asking those big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is God? Blah, blah, blah. Eddie, love him, but he is a Gemini stellium. His feet, he's addicted to his phone already. He's so addicted to his phone. He watches lots of YouTube, reads lots of comments, always arguing with people online. And the stuff he watches is just so dumb and pointless. And he'll just watch anything for the sake of watching. Just consumption of ideas and data and information, and not a lot of like pausing for the deep thought, right? That's Gemini. It really just takes in all the data. And then later, when we reach Sagittarius season, when we start a little bit in Virgo, and then Sagittarius season, that's when we start to like take this data, piece it together into some sort of picture, and then ask questions about that picture. That comes later, right? Gemini really is an open mind that doesn't do a very good job of filtering things out. And so it's easily influenced by propaganda, manipulation techniques, and things like that is put in media, right? So Gemini governs the mind, but it's not the whole mind. It is what's known as the lower mind versus the higher mind, Sag. And it's the forefront of the mind. It's logic. It's consumption of data. It's how we process information. It's about learning, like early childhood education as opposed to like higher education that Sag governs, like college and advanced learning degrees and exploring subjects for your own passion or whatever. It really kind of governs like reading, writing, arithmetic, learning, but like base level things, right? It governs communication. It governs our nervous system, and it governs our duality of ideas and perspectives. All right, so these areas of our collective reality will be majorly impacted by this 7-year transit. Perfect tweet here to describe how it's going to feel with Uranus and Gemini. We've already been feeling this, but it is going to just ramp up exponentially the amount of information being flown at you, and also the amount of information you're able to process. So, hey, sorry, I missed your text. I am processing a non-stop 24/7 onslaught of information with a brain designed to eat berries in a cave. There is going to be some sort of major false flag event during this time, probably revolving around a world war. Probably something that gets us into a world war. Something fucking huge is going to happen, much like 2020. And especially in the like truther conspiracy realm, they are going to be just diving in, trying to decode all of this, every aspect of this. And like, it's going to be very easy for us to get sucked in to that. Be mindful with your consumption of information during this time, because it is going to be a flood. All right. And we are not, our nervous system is not capable of processing this much information. It's not. It can do it, but it's going to fry. Right. And so this is going to be a time for us to either, much like Uranus and Taurus, either our body merges with the machine and we go forward with what this is all about, or we rebel against it, right? Either our mind is going to merge with all of this that they want pushed in there, or we are going to resist it, right? And it will take a rebel to resist. Not everybody will be able to do it, but Uranus will activate the rebel in us all. Okay, so grab your chart. Look and see what house Gemini governs in your own chart so that you can get some insight into how this might play out for you personally. Or you can book a session with me and we'll do it together. All right. When Uranus transited Taurus, It brought technological change to the realm of our physical body. A war was fought. Some took part in those changes, others rebelled. I literally just said this. Some took part in these changes and others rebelled against them. Now, the technological war for the mind is upon us more than ever, and there will be a revolution and a rebellion in this area. Uranus and Gemini will bring with it mass data collection and consolidation. Think Palantir. Think Big Brother 1984, eye in the sky, right? Eye in your fucking pocket, really. Soon eye in your brain once they get their chips in you. Think the beast system, right? Think Skynet, right? Think Terminator. We're not going to make it, are we? People, I mean. It's in your nature to destroy yourselves. Major drag, huh? Like, this is really where we're at. It is in our nature to destroy ourselves. The last time Uranus was in Taurus, we had the big bombs. We dropped them. We killed a shit ton of fucking people. Since then, everybody's been making the big bombs. I'm not saying we're going to have a nuclear holocaust. I don't think they really want to do that because they want this world for themselves. I don't think they want it to be like super poisoned. I know they got their bunkers and all of that. I don't think they really want to do that. But I think that there will be mass destruction and war and the threat of that looming over humanity. Right? The threat of us destroying ourselves. So, our lovely president, Trump, is a Gemini, all right? He has this duality about him, and I was warning the MAGAs for a long time that, like, we are going, in this presidency, now that he doesn't have to try to get reelected again, this is his last presidency unless he makes it extended, we're going to see dark MAGA, right? The other side of Mr. Trickster. He painted you one picture of what he was going to do, and he said it and made it very believable, at least for those people, because Geminis are good fucking liars, right? Eddie is not. He's a horrible liar. He cannot do it. His face gives it away. But traditionally, Geminis are very good liars. And it's not that they're lying, it's that they literally have multiple personalities, and their one personality maybe believed what they were saying at the time, but then they flipped to the other side, and now they're doing the opposite, right? We are seeing the shadow side. We were seeing the other side of this president and what it was all about. He's not fronting anymore. You know, he was pretending to be clearing the swamp and getting rid of the deep state and all of these things, right? When really he's building the New World Order in a way that makes his base cheer for it, right? And this big, beautiful bill that he just passed on the 4th of July, right before Uranus moved into Gemini, is really pushing a lot of these things forward and making them real, right? It's ushering in this new technological control system, particularly through things like Palantir. This is from their website. Palantir Technologies is a software company that builds and deploys platforms for data integration, analysis, and decision-making, particularly in the areas of national security and commercial enterprises. It's known for its work with government agencies and large corporations. And I added this part. And it's coming to a town near you. This is what we've been worried about for so long, the conspiracy realm, and they're so fucking quiet about this. I only hear people on the left or like the weird, obscure conspiracy folk like me who are found this place in the middle where we don't trust either side, who of course have been talking about this for a long period of time, but the like mass majority of people on the right who I majorly agreed with through all of COVID, who I followed and was like, yeah, I know you're Christian and we have opposing beliefs on certain things. I have unfollowed every single one of those pages. One, for the rhetoric and the hate and the blatant racism with what is happening with migrants, the cheering for torture and death and concentration camps. I was like, wow, this is some bigot shit. I cannot listen to this. And the blatant disregard for everything Trump is doing and pushing forward when they were so loud about the New World Order, oh my gosh, the secret societies, and now they're just blind to it all. I'm like, wow, yeah, we're back where we were, you know? It's all happening. It's all happening, and the guy who said he was going to stop all of these things is the one pushing them forward. It's kind of brilliant. It really is those chess moves that they think about so many moves ahead, right? The powers that want to be, you got to give them credit where credit is due, and they are evil geniuses. Like they thought this shit through, you know? And they really planned it out for generations. You know, it's been happening for so long. It's crazy. You gotta give them credit. I hate the fuckers, but you know, they really thought this through. All right. So the eye in the sky is here, right? It's in your pocket. It's every fucking where. Are you gonna feed it, or are you going to take back your power? And like we got autonomy of our body to a certain extent, we now will fight for autonomy of the mind, right? This is the heads of Palantir, Meta, and OpenAI being initiated into the U.S. military, forming what they're calling Detachment 201. Didn't they have some like COVID, or like, not COVID, but pandemic simulation that happened like right before the actual pandemic that was called Event 201 or something like that? I think they did. Or maybe it was these numbers that maybe they're like mixed around. But yeah, anyway, telecommunications and the Silicon Valley and the realm of tech has merged now with it always was entangled, but has officially merged now with our government and our military, right? This is such a good tweet for Uranus and Gemini, right? Computers used to scream out in pain when we connected to the internet. This was a warning, and we did not heed it, you know? So much has happened since the invention of the computer, the last time Uranus was in Gemini, and then the invention of the internet, and then the rise of our connection to all this data and information at our fucking fingertips, right? It has done some damage. And this transit of Uranus through Gemini is either going to like solidify that damage or help us to break free from it. And ideally, a lot of us who have Chiron and Gemini could really do a lot of healing of the wounds that we've acquired over time when it comes to Gemini, right? Information, communication of that information, technology, learning, our mental faculties, our mind, right? All right. So our Gemini president, a term I use loosely, will be acting even more unhinged than ever before while Uranus is in Gemini and transiting his Gemini stellium in the 10th house, which governs the world stage, career, reputation, impacting the world and being seen in the world. Many of the events that will mark the years to come will have him entangled with them, initiating them, triggering them, as he and others were strategically placed to usher in the New World Order in such a way that the right will fight for it and not against it. And here's another one of those others. Mr. Alex Jones, anti-government surveillance Alex Jones, supports CIA-backed Palantir. And they get them, of course, to support this by pandering to their innate racism and hate for immigrants, right? So they're like, yeah, we need to track and trace so we get these people out of our fucking country. And, you know, it's so sad how predictable humans are. They really understand us because of all the data that they have collected over the years, that they knew how to paint this in such a way that people would cheer for it. People will want it. So unfortunate. I knew it! A government conspiracy! You know, the left opened up the borders so that the right can shut them down in such a crazy way that it builds an entire technological infrastructure to track and trace and control everybody. Hilarious. Okay, so Uranus and Gemini is all about AI, right? Gemini is the mind. It's data. And Uranus is high technology. Shit, Google's AI is literally named Gemini. But much like Gemini, AI is not the higher mind. It's not sentient. It is not doing anything other than regurgitating data and information that it has consumed, right? It is not philosophicalizing it. It is not thinking for itself, right? It fed itself us. Our words, our ideas, our research, our information, everything that humanity has acquired, it consumed that and it regurgitates it back to us, right? So Uranus and Gemini is all about AI, but not, how do I want to word this? Not like, not that I really believe it's possible, but not like singularity, not any sort of enlightened intelligence. I love you guys, Gemini. I have Gemini placements. It covers my 10th house. I'm dating a Gemini. I'm not talking shit. But Gemini is data, regurgitated data. It's not a lot. It does not govern like heightened intelligence, right? Oh, I feel so bad. I'm not saying you guys are dumb, but I'm saying that Gemini governs like overly logical, overly literal data, information processing and collection, which is what AI is kind of all about, right? It's soulless. I'm not saying Gemini is soulless. No, not at all. But AI is, right? It is regurgitated us, right? So Uranus and Gemini is all about AI. Google's AI is literally named Gemini. It's about surveillance, data collection, and an onslaught of information, much of which will be generated by AI. It's soulless. It's not real. And a lot of people will be kind of falling hook, line, and sinker for the generated world that this transit represents, right? We have these tiny little propaganda brainwashing machines in our pocket, which will be firing ideas and information at us faster than we can process it, especially when shit starts popping off, whatever these major world events are, right? It will be a time that we are ideally forced to find ways to protect our mind, our nervous system, and address our connection to technology and the sea of information trying to drown us, trying to sway our minds in ways that distract us from the things that really matter, which is true connection, experience, family, and reality, humanity itself, right? Mind reading and mind controlling technology is already here. It's been here for quite some time. The patents are endless. But Uranus and Gemini will likely deploy them on a mass scale. Just like the television existed previous to Uranus in Gemini, but the rise in it in every home happened during Uranus and Gemini, right? We'll probably see a rise in the deployment of mind controlling and mind reading technologies on a scale we've never before seen. A world war is likely, but the real war will be a fight for autonomy of the mind, and it will start first by the rebels pulling themselves away from the device you are likely reading this on or listening to this on or watching this on, pulling yourself away and returning to reality, humanity, family, real experience, true connection, right? This is a scene from the movie Dinner with Andre, which is a movie that consists of two guys sitting at a table talking for the whole thing. The whole thing takes place in a restaurant. And everybody should watch it. Fabulous movie that really has so many nuggets of wisdom and enlightenment in it, right? And here's a quote. May very well be a self-perpetuating unconscious form of brainwashing. Every time you pick up your phone and you scroll and you're hearing the repetitive trending sounds and you're reading all of the different things. I know our feeds are a little bit different than traditional people's feeds, but every time you pick this up, it's a self-perpetuating, we are choosing to do this, a self-perpetuating unconscious, a lot of times we pick it up without even thinking, after we just put it down. It's an unconscious form of brainwashing. But now you've been told about it, so you can't claim that you're unconscious of it anymore. You've been told, you've been warned, and now we need to do something about it. And Uranus in Gemini is when ideally we do something about it, or we lose our humanity altogether. Like, it's really kind of a make or break type time when it comes to intelligence and our minds. And a lot of it starts with like raising our kids during this time, right? To use their minds and not give it all away to AI, right? For AI to paint something for them, for AI to write something for them, for AI to research something for them, for AI to think for them, right? Okay. So Uranus is the rebel that will be ripe and at the forefront of all of our minds during this time. The powers that want to be know this and will use it to their advantage, funneling us into their orchestrated rebellions, their orchestrated revolutions, their orchestrated uprisings, right? And these rebellions will ultimately help them test their new technologies and give them reason to build new systems of control, allowing us to feel like we're fighting, that we are embodying Uranus, but in such a way that it fuels their agenda, their plan, their new world order. However, a natural rebellion will also manifest. Uranus is not only the rebel, but also the great awakener. Waves of awakenings, of realizations will ultimately follow, much like 2020. The powers that want to be pushed forward. Many fell for the op. But others began to question, began to realize, began to awaken to the propaganda, the world beyond the illusion. It was there that they found the freedom Uranus ultimately represents, the freedom to think for yourself, to be yourself in a world of groupthink. Here's another one from Spike. Is everyone here very stoned? There is going to be a major essence of like groupthink where everybody is thinking one way and you're like, wow, this is the wrong way. What the fuck is going on? Is everybody fucking high right now? Just like in this scene, he's the only one that sees things for what it is, right? Everybody, probably because he's the only one that's a vampire, but everybody else is like impacted and their memory is affected and they're unable to remember what just happened. And he's like, whoa, this blah, blah, blah just happened. And they're like, what? Really? And even right after he tells them that, they immediately forget it, like this like cognitive dissonance. And he's like, what is going on here? Is everybody fucking stoned? And it's really going to feel that way, where the world is going to be taken away by groupthink in general. Not only is Uranus in Gemini, but it's also going to be trining Pluto in Aquarius, right? It's like, this is the collective consciousness. And it is going to be manipulated. It's going to be technologically controlled, Pluto, Uranus, right? And then there's going to be those of us who have been embodying the rebel misfit archetype our whole fucking lives, who are going to be looking around going, what the fuck is everybody stoned? And if you think that way, then you're probably in the right place, all right? If you agree with the masses, you're definitely lost. Okay, so this transit of Uranus and Gemini will bring with it a sense of mental restlessness. Like, if you are neurodivergent, if you have anxiety, if you are ADHD, if you are a high-strung individual, like me, that essence of your personality, that aspect of your mind, of your consciousness is going to be fucking heightened, all right? Finding ways to get back into your body, to ground, to regulate your nervous system is going to be imperative of you to do that in the coming years, right? Because we are going to be very restless. Our mind is going to be firing on all cylinders, right? It's going to bring this essence of curiosity, of a heightened desire to learn. Just make sure you're learning with a purpose and you're not just consuming information unconsciously like Gemini loves to do, right? This essence is allowing us to explore new ideas and break free from limiting thought patterns. Uranus is about breakthroughs, and this is breakthroughs in the mind. And if you have Chiron there, like many of us do, this is breakthroughs of wounds and things that are holding you back from expressing your ideas, expressing your mind, learning like you'd want to, communicating like you'd want to. We're really going to be called to learn and explore ideas. You got to make sure you're doing this intentionally, because if you do not have an intentional outlet for this, you will fall into negative habits like doom scrolling, right? Would be a really great time to perhaps join my course or something along those lines, something where you intentionally funnel your heightened sense of learning and curiosity and the fucking mind towards something that is awakening, something that is enlightening. Uranus, right? All right. So you must, I repeat, you must have a that's what I just said. Okay, I didn't read this before. Okay. You must, I repeat, you must have a positive outlet for this energy, or you will fry your nervous system more than it probably already is. You will get sucked into doom scrolling like you have never have before. And with it, the distraction from what this transit is all about, which is awakening the mind, the mental faculties, and the ability to learn, consume, and process massive amounts of data and information. It's a time of both consumption of information, yes, but also a time to balance our intake, and intake with intention and focus on its impact on the nervous system. All right, no, your mind is gonna be popping, and you need to put that to good use intentionally. Today would be a really great time to set some intentions. No, your mind is going to be firing. How do I want to use this over the next 7 years? Because if I do not intentionally make a plan for this, Gemini is so scattered, it's so restless, it is all over the fucking place. Without the structure, it's going to go everywhere, and you're going to literally fry your circuits, all right? Oh my God, my mind is going a mile an hour. Like, yes, it's going to be going a light year an hour. It's going to be out of this fucking world. And it would be a really great time to join my course, also linked down below, which will be finally picking back up later this month. Consume with intention. And right now you can save 30%. Okay. This is you learning from my course with your cat and being so witchy and enlightened by it all. All right. So this transit is historically tied to conflict, division, and rebellion, especially when existing ideas or systems are challenged or new ones are throwing us into a future we do not want. Both of these things are going to happen simultaneously because it's Gemini, the realm of two. This leads to a splitting of the collective mind, a splitting of viewpoints, of perspectives, of ideas, right? There will be a divide within the minds of man, and the truth will likely be found in the middle, which is a very hard place to find. There will definitely be a wrong side of history, like cheering for concentration camps and a technological control system and the death of children. Wrong side of history, very bad, right? And there will, of course, be a right side of history who's against all of these horrible atrocities, right? But the right side of history is going to be manipulated into unwittingly fueling the wrong side's agenda, right? Through certain orchestrated events and revolts and protests and things like that, right? So definitely a wrong side of history for fucking sure of it. No way around that. Like, that is bad. Right side of history, who knows that is bad, but the right side will be their emotions, their empathy is going to be targeted, used against them, and manipulated in such a way that it helps to fuel the bad shit, right? So be mindful. This is supposed to say be, not we. Be mindful, be rebellious, but be careful of being pawns in the divide and conquer strategies of the powers that want to be, and try and find your sense of humanity and sanity in the middle. All right, note. The first week of July over the next few years will be a time to watch. Today, July 7th, oh, this is supposed to say 2025, my bad. Today, July 7th, 2025, Uranus enters Gemini. The last time this happened, America joined World War II. We had Pearl Harbor, joined World War II. July 4th, 2026, Mars conjuncts Uranus in Gemini. The last time this happened, America dropped the atomic bomb on Japan. July 6th, 2027 is America's Uranus return, which is historically tied to major wars with American involvement. The first week of July, definitely something to watch out for. And let's hope it doesn't end like it did in Star Trek, which was an atomic holocaust. That they, as it takes place in the future, that they constantly look back on as like the darkest part in our human history, and something that they did eventually learn to move beyond and find like peace with their fellow man, right? But they look at the mid-21st century, where we're at now, 2025, as the worst part in human history. And we know that they love to do predictive programming in these shows. I love the show, particularly The Next Generation. I'm a big Jean-Luc Picard fan. Love him. Love you. They look at this period of our history as the worst period in human history, right? This is when we almost destroy ourselves, almost destroy humanity as a whole. Okay, let's just hope that doesn't happen. So, are we heading into days that will be chapters in history books? Are we doomed to repeat the past? Oh no, not are we. We are. We are heading into days that will be chapters in history books. Are we doomed to repeat the past? Or will we learn, awaken, and evolve beyond our own destruction? And does the destruction have to happen first before we learn, awaken, and evolve behind it? beyond it like it did in the show? Or can we just learn from our constant, I'm going to come back to that, but our constant pattern of destroying ourselves? Like, this is nothing new. We've done this time and time again. Are we going to learn from that? Or are we just doomed to repeat it? I don't know. I guess we shall see. Some of us are born to obey, and throughout this, many will. They'll think they're being rebellious and Uranian, but they're falling right into traps set for them. They are obeying. And then some of us will be cursed to see through it all. And then we ask ourselves, what do we do with that ability to see? Right? If you can see, if you have begun to awaken to the lies, to the agenda, if you have started to embody the rebel archetype, then you are needed now more than ever. And look to see where Uranus falls in your natal chart natally. Look and see where Gemini falls in your natal chart natally. Look to see what kind of planets are aspected to get some insight into how you're meant to kind of show up. If you look at your chart and you're like, what the fuck is this? I do not know what I am looking at. Be a great time to book a session and we can look at it together and we'll dive into it and I'll tell you all the things. All right. So how might this look? How might showing up as the rebel during this time look? How might it look for you to be able to use your ability to see, your ability to awaken beyond the illusion, the glamour, right? And see what's behind the veil, what's behind the curtain of our collective reality, right? How might this look? So Gemini governs early childhood education, right? So this might look like homeschooling the next generation, because Gemini literally governs early childhood education, and Uranus is going to be there. So we're breaking free from traditional norms in that realm. We're rebelling against traditional aspects of that realm, right? And we're finding freedom and liberation and really like a self-led type energy when it comes to early childhood education. You're going to see a lot of people fleeing the school system, rebelling against the school system. And then you'll also see in the actual school system an integration of AI and really having our kids have an even shittier education and learning even less, because so much of their mental faculties are going to be forked over to the machine, right? So this might look like homeschooling the next generation, rebelling against the school system, against its integration of AI and its lack of soul, and raising kids to question, to break free from societal norms, to forge their own path. The only way to change the future is to raise the future. This is why propaganda and mind control tactics are forced so heavily on the youth, because they are the future. And with Jupiter in Cancer right now expanding the realm of family, a focus on the home and family is where our energy is needed, wanted, and can bring the most benefit to our lives. All right? This might look like showing up in the sea of information, sharing something of substance, something that awakens and doesn't just distract, something that fuels the soul and feeds our humanity, which is being siphoned by the machine. This might look like being a rebel, but with a cause. This might look like focusing on unplugging on yourself, your mind, your nervous system, because you are no help to anyone if you fry your circuits. This might look like being intentional with the information you consume, protecting your mind and not letting everything enter. This might look like navigating major world events while an onslaught of conflicting information comes at you from all directions and you try to find the middle. This might look like continuing to walk into the future even when you want to just give up. I can't fucking do this, I mutter for the 20th time as I continue to fucking do this. We don't have a choice, right? Don't let this transit fry your mind. Allow it to awaken instead. Be intentional, learn, use your mental faculties and your God-given humanity to build a better future for us all. A great place to start would be booking a session to see how this transit is impacting you and what it's asking of you when it comes to the generation ahead, or joining my course to use your heightened learning abilities intentionally instead of throwing it all away to doom scrolling the algorithm, which is what will happen if you do not have an outlet. Mark my words. Use the code to save. I am now booking for July and August, and don't forget you get all this free stuff if you book now. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the cards I've pulled for this energy and the transits that Uranus makes. The first couple transits Uranus makes as it moves into Gemini. So let's talk about transits first. All right, so Uranus moves into Gemini today. Really, it did so really early this morning. 12:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Moved into Gemini. Now, it doesn't make any exact aspects to anything, as best as I can tell, until the 22nd. That's when it makes its first exact aspect to a planet. And that is the sun. So the sun sextiles Uranus on the 22nd. All right. Uranus in Gemini is all about the mind, information, communication of ideas. On the 22nd, we will be in Leo season. The sun will be in its home sign of Leo. And that represents our vitality, our consciousness, our individuality, our life force. And it will be in a harmonious aspect to Uranus. This is the first exact aspect that Uranus makes once it moves into Gemini, is a harmonious aspect to our sun, which represents our conscious life force, our creative spark, our ability to express the self-expression. It really has an aspect, it really has an essence that is strongly connected to the heart and our ability to express from the heart. And the first aspect that Uranus in Gemini makes is to the sun, to our light, to our consciousness, and it's working harmoniously with that. Now, it needs effort on our part to really get the benefit because it is a sextile, which requires us to put in a little bit of effort. But if we put in a little bit of effort, this Uranus transit really has the ability to awaken us, our creative potential, our life force in such a way that quantum leaps us into the future. Or we could sacrifice that aspect of ourselves to the machine, right? And the 22nd is really going to start to highlight that energy for us. I find it interesting that the first aspect Uranus makes is to one of the most personal planets there is in the luminaries. It is the sun. This is our aspect of identity. This is our aspect of vitality. This is the part of ourselves that governs our personality, our ego, the self, the individual. And that which the individual is here to create and express, right? And so it really speaks to how this transit can impact that aspect of us in such strong ways, really heightening it, awakening it, or really sacrificing it, and all of those beautiful aspects of our humanity, the aspect of being the creator, to a machine that now will create for us, right? Okay, so the first major aspect on the 22nd of July is the sun in a harmonious aspect to Uranus, working with it. But how is it working with Uranus? Is it working with Uranus the rebel? Is it working with Uranus the awakener? Or is it working with Uranus as the high technology that is here to kind of sweep our humanity off its feet, What aspect of Uranus is it working with? It is up to us, right? Okay, so after, I just have them highlighted. We got to go through. Okay, so the next major aspect to, this is going to be a day, you guys. The next major aspect to Uranus is a trine, another harmonious aspect, a free-flowing, working together energy of a trine with Mars. Now remember, when Mars conjunct Uranus, we drop the bomb in Taurus. When Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini, we drop the bomb. Mars is war, it's aggression, but it's also action, drive, motivation, right? And they're going to be working together. Now this happens on August 8th. 8-8. Uranus moved in on 7-7, and on 8-8 it will harmoniously aspect Mars. I expect that day is crazy every year. Every year. Historically on the world stage, some big shit goes down, and I expect that one to be very big. Some sort of major action, aggression that maybe is shocking and cataclysmic on the world stage will probably happen on that day. Now, in your personal lives, this is a free-flowing energy between the planet of action, drive, motivation in Libra, trining Uranus in Gemini. So it's coming from taking action towards partnership, relationships, the other, right? And it really speaks to a communication, but the communication could have some sort of like power struggle dynamics with Mars being there. Or we can just be called to fight for our partnerships, our relationships in some sort of way. Or we can be called to take action towards business contracts, associates, clientele, relationship dynamics, and the communication learning dynamic that needs to happen within those. So we had sextile to the sun, trine to Mars. Then the next major aspect it makes is also a harmonious aspect, and that's a sextile to Saturn, which is retrograde in Aries. And that's on August 11th. That's followed by a sextile on August 26th, Venus to Uranus. Venus in Leo, sextiling Uranus in Gemini, also a harmonious aspect. And then that is followed by a sextile between Neptune retrograde in Aries and Uranus in Gemini on August 28th. So Uranus moves into Gemini on the 7th. It then aspects 5 different planets, all of which are harmonious aspects, all of which are either trines or sextiles. These planets are working together, and a lot of these are planets that just moved into new signs. Saturn, which just moved into Aries, Neptune, which just moved into Aries. So look and see where Aries falls in your chart. Look and see where Libra falls, and look and see where all the air and fire signs fall in your chart, but really where the planets are at. Where is Aries? All right, Aries is going to be majorly impacted right now with Saturn and Neptune moving there. And then those are going to be aspecting in a harmonious way Uranus. And so the breakthroughs, the awakening, the innovation, the information coming to our mind is working with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, right? And so look and see where those kind of fall in your chart. But we have August 8th, August 11th, August 26th, August 28th, all have exact aspects to Uranus, all of which are harmonious. And so August is really going to be getting things moving. Yeah, we have Mercury retrograde, the beginning part of the month. It stations direct on the 11th, the same day that Saturn sextiles Uranus. And then it's still being in shadow till the end of the month. We have that, but that Mercury retrograde is also harmoniously aspected. It's really helping us to get the mind going again after a period of not. I mean, that's where I've been. I don't know about you guys, but that is for sure where I have been. And then September, we start having some squares, right? There's still some trines to Uranus, but we have Mercury squaring Uranus on September 3rd, and we have Venus squaring Uranus, which will then be retrograde as well. Uranus stations retrograde on September 5th. And we also have eclipse season in September. So we have 2 different eclipses in September that really bring these fated, destined changes. And then we have Uranus starting to have some more tenser aspects to personal planets that are going to force us into changes, which we're not going to really have any choice because the eclipses are there to propel us in a direction that usually involves some sort of fated, destined change, right? But then we also have Mercury trining Uranus and the Sun trining Uranus. So we have harmony with that as well. But we always look to see how a planet is aspected when it first ingresses into a new sign. And Uranus is aspected positively. It is also in a trine to Pluto. Now, the Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus's home sign, trine to Uranus in Gemini is not exact until 2028, 2029, 2030, but because the planets move so slow, but it is already well within orb. We are feeling that trine, and it's that call to like radical transformation, a death and a radical rebirth, right? All right, let's talk a little bit about these cards, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so I pulled an archetype card, and I'm like, okay, what is the overarching archetype of this transit? And the card that came out is Thanatos, and I was like, whew. Okay, well, give me some cards to see like what's on the other side of this death and destruction, right? This is one of the I love this deck, the Kim Krantz archetype deck. And it's broken up into the archetypal selves, like father, mother, child, things like that. The archetypal places, like the forest, the mountain. The archetypal tools, like the stone and the vessel. And then the archetypal initiations, like Thanatos, the initiation of death. Or agape, the initiation of like universal higher love. Or like gnosis, the initiation of inner knowing, right? And so both of the cards I pulled are initiation cards. And there's only a handful of those. There's way more of the other cards. So this is definitely going to be a transit of initiation, a transit of probably mass death and destruction, which pierces the veil so that we can see the other side, right? And then on that other side, we find this like higher universal love and understanding. So we're going to read these 2 from the book. And then we'll talk about I pulled a tarot card too. We'll talk about that after. All right, so these are at the end of the deck because these are the final initiations that all of the archetypes are leading us up to, right? So, Thanatos. The word Thanatos means death. It is the Greek god of death. People think Hades governs death or Pluto governs death. No. Hades governs the underworld, which is where we go when we die. And it has the Greek version of both heaven and hell down there. So they have Tartarus, which is like bad people burning. And then they have the Elysian Fields, which is where it's kind of like a heaven type blissful paradise, right? So Hades governs the afterlife, but Thanatos represents death that then gets us there, right? So this is the initiation of death. It is tempting to oversimplify death, and my nails are so dirty. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna kind of like go like this. It is tempting to oversimplify death and sum it up as transformation. With Pluto, we definitely have an aspect of transformation. But the true archetypal resonance of Thanatos cannot be easily assimilated or contained. Death is ongoing. It's omnipresent, an eternal response to the gift of birth. Witnessing the ending of another being, creature, phase, or stage has deep consequences for the psyche. We are forever changed by Thanatos as it sweeps us under its wings, making us relinquish control in every form. It leaves a mark of ash upon our heart, signifying we have touched the cusp of the underworld and will return to the land of the living eventually, with more compassion and wisdom and love to share. This capacity is needed in our world. One who has faced the annihilation of Thanatos can face anything. When this card appears, it signifies an initiation into the underworld. Now, as Uranus moves into Gemini, it starts to trine Pluto in Aquarius. And it is also, so it's trining Pluto in Aquarius, right? They're working together. Now, Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto is transformation, change, death, and rebirth, and alchemization. And Aquarius represents our collective mind, our culture, our the brotherhood of man, right? And it's aspecting Uranus in Gemini, which is all about connection and communication. And so ideally, we're dying mentally, probably also some people literally, in order to tap into something more awakened, something more enlightened, something of a higher expression than where we were before. This is represented by the card Agape, which we'll get into in a second, and then also the tarot. So it says, facing death leads us to truth. There are those with a great gift for navigating this death energy. That is us millennials with Pluto and Scorpio. We're going through our Pluto square right now. Navigating Thanatos energy, thankfully. So there are those of us with a great gift for navigating Thanatos energy. Thankfully, we find these generous souls in emergency rooms, hospitals, hospice centers, and the like. I would say even like the realm of like depth psychology and mysticism as well. When this card is evolved, it is grieving, mourning, and bearing witness to all that is. But in its lower archetype, it can be a fear or an insensitivity to old age, illness, or the dying, which we're definitely going to see people having literally no remorse or empathy for people in turmoil. Okay, so this is the overarching archetype of this transit, but it has a purpose, and it's leading us to this and this. Okay, so let's read Agape. Agape is another one of the initiation cards. Let's do it like this. Okay. Devotion. Unconstitutional love. What if instead of putting yourself at the center of your spiritual practice, you put God, goddess, or nature at the center? How would this change your approach? Such is the energy of Agape. It is alive when we are in awe and wonder, our breath taken away by the sacred force that surrounds us and asks us for nothing in return. This card can indicate a spiritual initiation that stretches your capacity to love and to serve the rest of humanity. Your sense of the earthly as the heavenly and vice versa. Such an initiatory moment can appear in any form and like a healing balm, hi Gemini Chiron folk, to the modern soul. I'm going to reread that because I ruined it. Such an initiatory moment can appear in any form and like a healing balm to the modern soul. A soul that is being siphoned away to the machine right now, right? Its effects last a lifetime. The Agape card may also suggest you reassess what you worship every day, consciously or unconsciously. What are you elevating? where does this sacred ladder you climb ultimately lead? Transhumanism and a death to your fucking life essence. Agape can also be felt as an overwhelming love of family, of partner, of community. With the aspects of Gemini really governs our immediate community. And then Aquarius, where Pluto is, governs the community of man, right? And then we have Jupiter in Cancer, which is all about family, right? So agape can also be felt as an overwhelming love of family, partner, community. It's recognized by a deep swell of gratitude. The Greek word agape informs the English word agape. To have the mouth agape is to be awestruck by something of breathtaking delight. We are made humble once again. This card, when it's evolved, is service. It's reverence. It's honor. It's joy. But in its lower archetype, it's spiritual bypassing and it's righteousness. We're in Gemini. We're going to experience both of those. The collective is going to perforate, and many of them are going to be spiritually bypassing and in their righteousness 100%. Okay, so some crazy transformation and destruction that ultimately pierces the veil so that we can see a deeper truth. And that deeper truth is all about love for family and experience and humanity and service and gratitude, right? And then on the other side of this, the card that I pulled from the tarot is the Ace of Pentacles. The Ace of Pentacles is all about manifestation. It's an offering, a physical, tangible offering. It could represent finances or resources, which for many of us coming out of Taurus Uranus and Taurus, this has been a little wonky and a little unsettling, right? And so new opportunities, new manifestations for abundance, for making sure that we have some sort of physical foundation. You can see down here, it's like very earthly and very fertile and luscious right there on the ground. And then it's like this new beginning. The aces are new beginnings, right? So it's like this new beginning, this new start of finances, resources, possessions, things that are physical, earthly. The pentacles represent the element earth. So physical, earthly things that will feed our senses, right? So we had a bunch of stuff happen in Taurus, and now it's moving out of Taurus. And so Taurus is starting a new chapter of not having Uranus fucking there. And then Uranus is coming into Gemini, where we're going to have new ideas about how we can fuel our earthly journey, right? New ideas around abundance, new ideas around manifestation, new ideas and new offerings will come our way, right? But it's not going to necessarily be an easy for us to navigate, especially as a human collective. But there is such opportunity for like a heightened experience if we can navigate this effectively, right? All right, guys, this is the last time I remind you that I'm doing a sale. It's linked down below. I do not know how long it will last. I'm trying to kind of like bulk up my books for the next 2 months. And then I will cut the sale. Also, course will be picking back up ASAP. I'm hoping by the end of the month. And then from there, it will be episode after episode after episode until it's done. I hope to see you over there. Be a really great way to utilize Uranus and Gemini. And yeah, comment below. Yeah, you guys can discuss anything I said below. It helps to boost the algorithm. I appreciate it very much. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube if you're not already, but also the Substack, where I'm doing the long form writing. This whole thing I'm doing here, it all started long form writing on Instagram that I would put in many, many, many captions. But then they made it so that the captions would jumble up, and so you can't really do that anymore. But that was my jam, is long form writing. And I've been doing that over on Substack, and I will continue to do that. And I hope to see you guys over there. Substack's really great because it is not censored at all. If you subscribe to it, you're going to get what I wrote sent to your inbox. Nobody's going to be like, no, you can't see this one. No, we're not going to show anybody you follow this thing you just wrote. That's why I like Substack, because you will actually see everything that I write as long as you check your email. All right, guys, happy Uranus in Gemini, calling all the rebels. We were born for this, so let's try and show up in the world in the ways we were designed to show up. And looking at your natal chart is really the best way to kind of figure that out. For me, this is my 10th house. This is being seen in the world. It's my career. It's my mission, my purpose out there in the public sphere, right? Teaching, information, navigating the realm of learning and information, particularly with Uranus, the weird, otherworldly, futuristic aspect of astrology, which is what my course is all about. All the weird stuff. We haven't gotten into that yet, but we're going to get into the black holes, the other galaxies, the fixed stars, the asteroids, all the weird stuff that